Welcome to Smash Writing. We are excited. And we today are talking about...
What are we talking or arguing?
I think this is probably more... First off, we are talking about our favorite comedies of the decade of the 90s. And I don't know if this is a true argument.
Yeah, I think there's more agreeing here than anything.
It's just that it was crazy. We've been doing these genre rankings for a while now, and...
Too long. I can't wait for it to be over.
It just keeps getting better. But this might be a hard decade. This was a hard decade because I generally am pretty good with the amount of films I watch, and I write down bam bam what I want.
Yeah.
But there has been there's been multiple different lists of this because so many comedies came out in the 90s. Like, it's how many did you actually watch? Because I know this is not your favorite genre.
This is probably the most, and it's pushing 30.
I would probably have to say I was probably...
I mean, a lot of these I haven't seen since I was a kid, and I'm running... This is purely nostalgia-driven movies here.
Yeah.
I think there's only a handful of them
I
that
might even
watch.
be pushing 40 to 50 because I've seen everything on your list, of course my list, and then my couple my alternatives.
You seemed really lost at number 10.
What do you mean? Oh, yeah, that's your number 10 is the only... Let's start. Let's go with
Let's
your
go.
number 10.
All right, my number 10 is a movie called Mr. Baseball with Tom Selleck. He's kind of like a washed-out ball player. He's being sent to Japan.
Okay.
There was a great argument when he's like, I led the league in doubles in the month of August. So he gets sent to Japan. It's very fish out of water. You get this big, larger-than-life American in Japan.
Okay.
And that's kind of the joke of this. But there is a line. I watched this movie when I was 6 years old. It's not a movie you should probably watch shown to a 6-year-old.
Was it R-rated?
No, it's hard PG-13 now. And there's a line in this movie that has stayed in my brain since, and we're talking almost 30 years. He's working first base, and he's always trash talking the runners, trying to get them off kilter. And at one point, he looks over at the runner. He's like, "Got any naked pictures of your wife? Want to see some?"
You know what? I'm going to have to watch that film.
Just that line of, "Got any naked pictures of your wife? Want to see some?"
And it's like, it's my wife.
And you get the back and forth between him and the hard-nosed baseball coach, which is actually they were a shadow of Kenta Akura is the guy who plays it, and there's a shadow of he's kind of emulating a baseball coach who was like really hard on his players, but he was revered and loved because he was hard-nosed and he expected greatness, and that's kind of where this guy's coming from. You got the larger-than-life character who's kind of like arguing with him, and the whole running joke through that is that he can't understand English, so he has a translator. And there's a point where he does something to the equipment, he hits the equipment or he throws something, and he comes out and the coach is fining him for it, for disrespecting the equipment, and he pulls out his wallet and he gives him more than he should. And he's like, "Why did you pay twice?" He's like, "For the next time." And he takes his bat and whacks him with equipment.
You know, I'll have to check that out, to be honest.
That's that one line about the pictures that just makes me crack up laughing every time I think about it.
I mean, that is a catchy line. My number 10 is Kindergarten Cop. It's crazy how like some of these action stars, they can get into comedies and they can shine.
But it worked for Arnie and it did not work for Stallone.
That is true. Kindergarten Cop, you know, have you watched it?
Yeah, I watched it.
Okay. You know, it's the basic plot is he becomes a kindergarten teacher, even though it was his partner, she gets sick, and he always, you know, the killer's connected to one of the kids. But to see this big, bulky-ass dude as a kindergarten teacher,
being driven mad by his class. I'd love to see where he runs out and just screams into the air. Yeah,
and he tries to, you know, he's still trying to work the case, but he's dealing with the kids, and you're just like, you're almost feeling bad for him. Him going crazy is like obviously the best part of the comedy.
Well, they did a good job at setting up him as like that hard-nosed cop too at the beginning with the scene with the car.
Yeah, because like he had his beard, he got the beard, the shades, and he's going, he's a type of cop that's going to shoot first, ask later. But then when his partner gets sick, and she's like, only way we can get this case going is if you go in as a teacher. And so then he has to clean up his look, and he has to pretend to be a soft guy. And eventually it grows on him, but still, him dealing with the kids, I think he made it clear like he doesn't like kids.
Yeah, he doesn't like kids at the beginning.
Which makes it hilarious because now he's snapping left and right. So that is my number 10, Kindergarten Cop.
My number 9 is probably the weirdest one on this list. It's Ernest Scared Stupid. A lot of the Ernest movies don't really hit home for me. It's just, this is one of the two that actually do. Varney just throws himself into these roles. He just takes a stupid idea and he 100% all the way through it. And it does get like that warm nostalgia feeling of like being a kid and watching these movies. I mean, the acting's not good.
But he gets into the role.
He'll 100% his way through a bad role.
Because he's a bad actor.
I heard he was like a big chain smoker until it's too late, and it's like, oh, that's sad. But, yeah, reflection into the future.
You're right. My number 9 is Cop and a Half.
I am trying to remember this movie.
It stars Burt Reynolds as the cop, and he's once again
That's why I don't remember this movie.
You don't like Burt Reynolds?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
You'd think I would, but I don't.
I didn't think you had a problem with him.
I don't hate him or anything. He's just...
It's not like Tom Cruise?
No, I hate Tom Cruise. I will not watch anything. You cannot pay me enough money to watch Tom Cruise.
The Mummy.
Nope.
I want to remake an original.
No. Veto, I say. Veto.
Well, we can at least still do the Brendan Fraser.
We can do the Brendan Fraser one.
But Cop and a Half is basically, guys working a case. Burt Reynolds. He is still like the hard cop type of thing. Still doesn't like kids, so something in along ways of like the Kindergarten Cop.
So this is just spit off the Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah, the only difference is he's not going to be a teacher. The key witness to all of this is a 6-year-old boy. And the 6-year-old boy is very sassy, very sarcastic, and for the love of God, this is would be ever real, because no cop would bring a 6-year-old on, police chases and everything else.
To be fair, nowadays the 6-year-old would do better.
Yeah,
let's
really.
just face facts here. The 6-year-old wouldn't be down.
But once again, you have that hard cop and that kid dynamic who is very sassy. It brought the laughs, and they work together. They actually do work together and solve the case. The film came out in '93, so early '90s. Probably did take elements from Kindergarten Cop.
Of course.
It was like probably 90% the same thing. Tough cop dealing with kids.
To be fair, that's every comedy movie. I mean, how many of these movies on our board are pretty much the same story pattern?
Yeah. But that is my number 9.
My number 8. Sorry, my bad. Miscounting. Wayne's World.
You got a number too. How the fuck are you miscounting?
Party time. That's because of the way we've list is. Wayne's World is just a classic. The opening scene with the Queen song, Bohemian Rhapsody, that I had banging the Bohemian Rhapsody, to the 3 different endings and the Scooby-Doo ending.
I think I liked this one.
A lot of fun.
I don't think I liked the second one.
The second one was weird. Really weird.
Why,
it's
sour
weird.
Taste. So.
I mean, it's alright. Like, I do like Wayne trying to interrupt the weddings. He keeps going to the wrong one.
And him and Garth, those characters together were hilarious. Like I said, I think 2 left a bad taste in my mouth to hate the series overall.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, you got to do some explaining for your number 8. Why did you go for the first one over the second one?
I thought, okay, so my number 8 is Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. The reason why this one made the cut and not the first one is probably like...
This was the first one.
I mean, sorry, the first one
The
made a
second
cut
one
over
was,
the second one.
When Nature Calls.
Yeah.
I mean, What Nature Calls is better than the first one.
The over-the-top comedy can be...
That's Jim.
That is true. Jim Carrey is over the top. But I don't know. I just kind of feel like there's some, like, the over the top in the second one kind of ruined it and made the first one in my eyes better.
There was some good parts in the first one. When the woman was it the guy or the landlord that came up behind him and said something? He's like, "Satan, is that you?"
Yeah. It had some good laughs, and it was on the part of like wanting to be taken seriously, but still over the top comedy. Where I thought part 2 just had too much over the top comedy. I mean, we all know the story. I love Jim Carrey. I do like his acting. I love, and I'm not hating on part 2.
Yeah.
I watched part 2, but one of these I thought in my eyes had to make my final cut list, and I picked 1.
Don't mind me, just a little rhino over here.
That's my number 8.
My number 7. You don't like this one for some reason. Austin Powers.
I could only
and the
tolerate the
Spy Who
first
Shagged
one.
Me.
I could only
The
tolerate
second one, I
first
think, did it better when he went back to the 70s. It's just stupid fun.
And didn't the third one he went back to the 80s or?
No, I think, did he go back to the 70s again, or was it the 60s? Because it was disco then, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, disco was
It was
like
70s too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
think it was not the day. It was more like an individual year.
Yeah. But I don't know. Spy Who Shagged Me, I think, was the best one of the bunch. Mike Myers really understood the role. He really just got it all out. And like I said, it's just stupid fun.
Stupid is
Stupid.
correct.
It is stupid.
Stupid. I think this is the only one on your list that I can while the Ernest and this one are the only ones on your list that I probably disagree that wouldn't crack my top 100, and I only watched like 60 films. So, yeah, I never got into it. Like I said, the first one was alright. The rest, I think it just went downhill for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It's like, that's been so long. Like, was it? I'm having the memory of, like, was that the second one or the first one? Third one? No. Second one.
They're all the same.
They do all just run along the same course.
Yeah.
But it is a funny course.
My number 7 is Friday. I think this is one of Ice Cube's like 3rd or 4th role, so very, very early, still in the early 90s, where he was, that hardcore gangster, so it fit his mojo. But then you had Chris Tucker, and Chris Tucker was definitely coming up, right around this time frame, and they fed off of each other. The great chemistry, and pretty much they knocked every stereotype of like hood life and everything else like that. But they had like straight comedian actors trying to be these serious roles.
It was just grounded. It was really just grounded in this neighborhood.
Yeah, and it was crazy because the story was so simple.
Yeah.
That
it feels relatable when you watch it.
Yeah.
You grow up in those settings and areas. You watch Friday, and it's like, that's my neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
No, not my neighborhood. I'm not gangsta.
It was like my neighborhood.
Clearly, I'm not gangsta.
It was like
I'm see-through with the wall.
Yeah, it was kind of like my neighborhood, but there were still scenes that just made you laugh. Smokey getting hooked up to Blind Date, being very disappointed. Him driving his, like I said, most of the comedy did come from Chris Tucker's Smokey scene, where Ice Cube was more of that hard, straight character. But his backstory was that he got fired on his day off for stealing boxes or something like that, and he couldn't catch a break with his family. His mother makes breakfast, but not for him. He goes and has a big bowl of cereal, and his dad, there's no milk, and he's like, you put some water on that shit. There's a bunch of one-liners that just caught me, and now, I didn't like the sequels, but this one will always stand out. It was hilarious. So, number 7 of the 90s, Friday.
My number 6 is here for the song alone.
George.
George of the jungle, watch out for that tree. Ah!
No, wasn't there like a tree part though? Like there was like a.
I think
because they were like singing as he swings,
yeah,
and then he groans a little bit. He's like, "Watch out for that
yeah
tree."
The talking gorilla was hilarious. I love them. The back and forth arguments he was having with the other animals.
Brendan Fraser
is just the best. It's just the best. If you're doing like, this is the best knockoff of Tarzan I've ever seen. This is better than Tarzan in my book.
Yeah, I would give this. I think, obviously this was being in the 90s. I knew this before I knew Tarzan.
Yeah, I did.
So when I watched Tarzan for the first time, I was like, this knocked off of George.
This can't touch George of the Jungle. This is terrible. I'm going to watch George if he Brendan back.
Wasn't the story was pretty much of Tarzan.
Yeah, he had a little boy got lost in the woods and was raised by the gorillas. This is just parody of that. He's not good.
They did it better. It made you entertained. Yeah, it was. Like I said, nothing to argue on this one.
George of the jungle.
Watch out for that tree. My number 6.
This one might be a dumb one. I think this is a dumb one.
He's over the top, but it still catches me. And I'm talking about the '95 hit Tommy Boy from the late Chris Farley.
Big guy in a little coat.
It was crazy because his comedy was over the top, but the other comedies, from David Spade was more grounded, and it kind of like pulled the reins in like on him, and I felt like him and David Spade was a great comedy duo. And I think this might have been their first film that they worked on together, from after with Saturday Night Live, of course. But they just fed off of each other, making jokes one after another. Him explaining how like thinking works. Like, okay, the average human uses 10% of their brain. How much does Tommy use? 2% of their brain. Just like the jokes and fat man, little coat, and
bees in the car.
And then, ironically enough, the two cops don't want to deal with the bees, so they're like, "No,
we're gonna be going to leave."
I think obviously the chemistry and the comedians sold this film for me. I can still watch this. His girlfriend on the boat with the yelling at the kids, like she's like so innocent, and then the whole yelling at the kids. The stepmom is actually a con artist, and it was twisted. But number 6, Tommy Boy.
My number 5 is Jingle All the Way. Because Arnie and Sinbad warring, I will watch all goddamn day long.
This is a traditional Christmas movie. Like it was really fun.
As someone who works in retail, yes, they will fight over everything.
They're fighting over a toy.
Yeah.
Okay, and we know how crazy Christmas gets. But then at one point, when there's a fucking parade, they get into these costumes and they're actually thinking they're the characters.
I love the fact that they're a working Turbo Man. Well, fucking
the jetpack. And then he's walking around with a mega brain.
Just the part where they're trying to call into the radio station, they rip the payphone out and he starts shaking them. 911! 911! He kept claiming to have a bomb until he finally did have a bomb. And he's like, just put sick people in this world. What the hell's wrong with them? The Big Show was in it. He was a giant Santa Claus in the
I forgot he was
in the back warehouse. It's just funny. Like I said, like the customers walk into fights for this stuff.
This was like PG-13. Was it even could it have been PG? Because I don't remember.
It might have been. Maybe.
I don't even remember like any type of swearing.
I don't remember either.
I think this was just a comedy that really, like,
just
did it right.
It's like, especially when this movie came out, you had the Power Ranger fights going on, you had the Tickle Me Elmo fights going on. But yeah, this is Definitely gotta watch it on Christmas time. It's just too funny.
I think we know what Justin's favorite Christmas movies are.
Jungle All the Way, Die Hard, and Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Really hitting on the buzzers there.
Well, you're number one here too, could.
Yeah, my number one here too. There are 2 Christmas movies on my list. How did that happen?
Just like last episode with this genre, that you had Christmas movies.
Yeah.
Caught me off guard with that. My number 5 is Bad Boys. Action comedy. You got 2 stars. I don't think Martin Lawrence was really an action star until this film, and he still isn't. He just can blend in enough.
Yeah.
Will Smith was obviously the one that is the action star, but once again, you both got them doing action and comedy. Their one-liners were hilarious. The chemistry was great. Them arguing back and forth. One of the best scenes was the market.
So let's see, maybe you'll know. Is this Michael Bay's best?
Oof. I'll be honest with you. If it's saying would this be his best, I'm drawing a thin line between this one and Bad Boys 2.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about this Bad Boys his best.
As a series, yes, I do think it is his best because all the elements were
They're like
perfect.
the good story. You got 2 good actors.
2 good actors, good story. The story wasn't overcomplicated. They counterbalance each other.
And the action blend into the story instead of detracting from.
Yeah, the action wasn't like, I'm only going to, I'm going to pull out, it was like at an office meeting, I'm going to shoot everybody because the scene is going nowhere. The action went with the film. And mostly, with Bad Boys 2, it was really grounded more compared to the later stuff. Like, yeah, Bad Boys 2 had tons of the explosion, tons of scenes, but it was just an enhanced Bad Boys.
Yeah.
This one was grounded, and like I said, as a series, yeah, Bad Boys, the series, was Michael Bay's best work. Per movie, it's definitely going to be how you want to look at it. That at Bad Boys, he was grounded enough to keep it grounded. Or you can look at Bad Boys 2 and go, he did the over-top action, but it went with the movie.
Yeah.
But number 5, Bad Boys.
My number 4, arguably, is the best buddy cop movie of all time. Rush Hour. Just the chemistry between Tucker and Jackie Chan is off the charts. They were the best. Just them 2 bouncing off of each other, and you watch the friendship grow through it.
Yeah.
To the point where it doesn't feel unnatural that they've come together as friends and work together.
Because they had like a bonding scene.
Yeah, it's like the war. Yeah, the scene where they got the warplane and he's teaching them how to disarm.
That, and then talking about their fathers as being cops. They realized they had a lot in common, but like you said, you watched it grow. It wasn't just like 2 seconds into the movie, we have a scene where we're bros. No, it grew as the film went on.
Yeah.
And,
it was both in they're working, they clash, but they realize they're working for the same goal. And they're not trying to they're trying to one-up each other, but it's in like a friendlier way.
And Chris Tucker's honestly one of those ones that were coming up. You had Martin Lawrence, you had Chris Tucker, Eddie Murphy was another one, even though the late 90s was kind of like his peak, and then it kind of went down from there. You had some great comedians coming out of the 90s doing films, action films, and it was working. So yeah, Rush Hour 4 on your number 4, no problem there. Okay, so my number 4. This is
the worst. Why did you put this?
I don't know.
All of his movies.
Okay.
All of the movies that came out from him in the 90s. You went with this one.
I don't know why, but my number 4 is Dumber and Dumber.
Dumber. It's dumb. That's why. You're dumb. Your name's in the title.
I always, when I look at slapstick comedy or over-the-top comedy, I do think there's always a thin line from being funny then not funny or stupid. I don't know why. This slapstick comedy just kept bringing the laughs for me.
Liar.
Well, so let me explain that one. Liar, I've said already in this video a couple times that I made multiple lists. There was a version of my list that was actually Jim Carrey heavy.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do like half of my top 10 could have been Jim Carrey movies. So just because it's not on this list doesn't mean it wasn't one that stands out. This one stands out the most for me. I don't know why. Him and Jeff Daniels. Jeff Daniels is a great actor, and he was goofy in this one. Somehow they managed to be annoying and funny to me. But Liar Liar was on one of my lists. But that is my number 4, Dumb and Dumber. My
number 3.
Our future.
Grumpy Old Man.
Yep.
Damn right it will be. We're going to have a rivalry at some point. It's going to last 30 years.
Well, I'm going to be more stressed out on my mind, too. You're going to be all, like, cold, calm, and still arguing with me. And I'm going to have, like, grandkids running around and wanting to strangle people.
You're going to be Walter Matthau, and you're going to be Jack Lemmon. I love the scene where the one is trying to kill the other with the fish. Yeah. And the one guy's dad comes up, he's like, "Oh, get off!" And he's like 80 years old, losing his mind. What's even better is, like, normally in a comedy movie you have that tragic or sad part in the middle and then the laughs die off. This, you hit that tragic moment, but the laughs keep going. And Walter's character, whenever he's starting to learn just how much trouble this guy was friends with and has been rivaling and feuding with all these years is with the taxman, and they're gonna take his house. So he turns all that anger and aggression and torment he's been putting Jack Lemmon through, and he starts taking it out on the taxman. It's hysterical. Like, he boards up the house and it sprays down the roof, so while the guy's trying to take it off, you see the snow just starting to fall. He chucks a dead fish in the back of his car. It's good stuff. I love it. These two bounce off each other, the rivalry. Great stuff. Absolutely my future if I live past 45.
My number 3. I know you didn't watch this one, so I'll explain plot a little bit. Came out, I believe, in '98, starring Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. Life. Basically, Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence characters are in the first part of the film takes place in the 30s. And obviously what happens, being African American, they get blamed for a crime. Of course, Eddie Murphy's being loudmouth Eddie Murphy and being a hustler, and Martin Lawrence is a good going guy who has a woman, I'm assuming a wife, I think, at this point. And so he's trying to be biased. Meanwhile, Murphy is a character that keeps snapping. So it was a murder, but there's no evidence that ties him because they didn't do it. So they get sentenced to life. And you get to see their prison transition, how they, it went from a hillbilly-like prison, and they went through the whole phases of the prejudice, watching the prison grow into like a prison of today.
It's that comedy. Good Lord.
While when you have Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, they were bringing the laughs because, they were trying to do the right things, and I think it was like every couple of years they would try to escape, and they would fail and everything else like that. And they just brought the laughs. Then they would see some of their prison guys get released because of being good with something in the system, whatever. But they duke it out. They deal with the ups and downs. They managed to burn their part of the prison down and the part to escape. And they took like bodies from the morgue prison. So they just said, oh, they died and they were buried in the graves. And then you find out there's another prisoner telling his story to younger guys. And they're like, well, it didn't work out for them. They burned and they're dead and we're burying them. And the guy reveals, that's not them. Not? And then the scene cuts them enjoying like a Yankees game. In their like 90s. Some of the topics were like, but their comedies, two over-the-top comedy styles that they have just kind of kept bringing the laughs, and it ended on a somewhat of a good note, even though they spent like 60 years in prison.
Yeah.
That is Life. You gotta check it out if you haven't.
But movies are always like there are two genres you can do this in: the comedy and horror, where you can really show like how life can be actual shit.
Yeah.
And bad systems and corruption. You can get away with doing that in comedies and horror and still get your message across while doing other things. But my number 2 is the slapstickness of Army of Darkness. Is there anyone greater at self-mutilating himself than Bruce Scott?
I will tell you, first thing first, I don't have a problem with the Evil Dead series, but this is the first one I came across.
Army of Darkness? Yeah, same here. I watched Army first. But, Bruce Campbell he just beats the hell out of himself. It's just like, alright, Bruce, you're going to start punching yourself in the face in 3, 2, 1, go! And it's like you have this Three Stooges stick with the skeleton arms.
Yeah, it was so goofy that, like I said, when I watched this, and the comedy is like, I feel like, for me, it was just enough to keep my attention. And then when I realized, like, this came from a horror series, I'm like,
yeah, it came from Evil Dead.
I'm like, wait, how?
Like, how did they get here?
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell transition? You know, and we watched Evil Dead. We did a review for the original versus remake, and I'm still like puzzled because it's been a long time since I don't remember much of 2.
Yeah.
But I'm like to myself, like, you were here.
You're dead.
And then you became here.
Yeah.
You went from like a very good low budget horror to an over the top low budget comedy. How?
I'm good, Ash. Oh, you're good, Ash. I'm bad, Ash. Goody two shoes. Like Bruce is just the best when it comes to this comedy stuff. He had 3 words to remember, couldn't remember them.
But good for them for making it into a series that became a franchise that became a good cult following.
And it still is. Like, the video game just came out a few months ago.
Yeah.
So, killing it, still off this.
My number 2.
Another Christmas movie. How did this happen?
Home Alone. The magic that even though you could question every damn thing that that those criminals did to like fall into his traps, and you're like, dude, just look down. You would literally, if they would just look down through every fucking stunt of the movie, that kid would be beat to hell right now.
To be fair, they do a good job explaining it because you see it, the anger getting on both of them.
Yeah.
And they're not focusing, they're just zoning straight in on this kid.
Yeah.
And not focusing anymore.
But it's just but all the stunts, like, even though you said the movie could be solved in 5 minutes if they just looked down.
They did some great legwork to explain why they did not notice Kevin was missing. They threw away his airplane ticket.
Yep.
He was in the attic. They had the one random kid, because every neighborhood's got that goddamn shit kid that just shows up.
And he was wearing like the most identical hat.
Small kid, winter hat, blonde hair. There you go. You just explained every kid.
And they were in a rush.
Yeah.
So obviously I never traveled by plane, but everybody who's been to the airport would probably know how hectical it is.
Airports suck.
So when you're in a hurry because the power went out, they woke up late, the car showed up, they were going.
This was pre, 9/11 and high security, so you just ran to the gate going on the plane.
Yeah. So then, literally after they check in, and I guess their seats were in an area where they were spread out a little bit.
Yeah.
They take off. Now, once the plane takes off, you gotta go.
Yeah.
So they did a great job explaining it, to the point where you're like, okay, they're not unfit parents. I feel like they were unfit in part 2.
I did love what was it? The theory about this movie that Kevin's dad is a part of the mafia.
What?
Because it's like, first off, how you paying for that house with all of those kids? Now, some of them were cousins, right? But most of them were his. And the trip was on him. He paid for everyone to go.
But they never said his occupation.
No, they didn't. But it's like, how are you affording this shit? You paid for this family to go to Florida
The cheap
for
uncle.
Christmas.
The cheap,
The cheap uncle. Because you know the uncle didn't pay for his ticket.
Yeah. It brought all the laughs. Like he says, to be honest with you, it wasn't over the top, despite, like...
I mean, bits were.
Bits were. But it worked.
Yeah.
And that's why that is my...
I mean, he's not as murder happy as he would be coming to.
Yeah, he got... Some of his things that he were doing, that was like...
But he was just... It wasn't even traps. He was just chucking bricks off the seal with the roof.
Yeah. But this one, and the same thing goes for... you know, with the... I looked at both of them, and I thought...
I actually think these two canceled each other out. That's why they weren't on the list.
And because of that, when I looked at how it was very equal, and I'm like, okay, what was the one element that I would pick this one over the other? Because they were going to both be number 2. And I came to the conclusion was that the story of why he was left alone was better.
Yeah.
The second time around, I was like, okay, you literally went, and the movie came out 2 years apart, but it was only 1 year in storyline. It's like, you fucking forgot him again?
You would think that at that point she would have had like him by the neck, like, you stay next to me, boy.
and they didn't, but this one did everything right. So my number 2, Home Alone 1.
All right, before we get into our number ones, let's talk about this list. What were some of the most surprising things you put together when you came to your list? Like for me, the most surprising thing for me is the fact that Jim Carrey did not appear on my list. And Mike Myers was there twice.
The most shocking, surprising thing to me was there was so many movies with the same actors in it that was left out.
Yeah.
It surprised me of, not that I had to cut them short, but how many I had to cut. I told you, Jim Carrey's movies could have been half of my top 5.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy with some of his films, Beverly Hills Cop 2 and 3, Dr. Dolittle.
Yeah.
When he's the fat character, I'm literally drawing
Nutty Professor.
Nutty Professor. It shocked me of how many of the actors had so many good comments.
Yeah.
And you literally had to sit there and go, I had to cut some down. And even then, you still looked at, it's still overloaded. There's still at least like 2 that, a few of them that are 2 on my list.
When I compiled all the movies I saw in this decade under one list, and when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, this is easy, done. And by the end of it, there's no Carrey.
I said it was hard for me. That was the surprising. It was how many actors' movies that I had to cut because it was just like how 1, 2. Like I would have had to do a list like that. But go with your number 1.
My number 1 is the wholesome, family-driven film of Jack Frost, the Killer Snowman. He's a goddamn snowman, Paul. He's killing people with his nose.
Here's the ironic part of that, and like when I was coming across this film, because I feel like we're probably going to review it on one of our channels.
Not to mention the bathroom scene.
The hilarious
the bathroom scene is like, what is happening here?
Here's the best part for me. It's not even the movie in its movie itself. It's the fact that it came out a year before the Michael Keaton.
Yeah, this was before Keaton?
This was before.
Someone watched this and went, I can make this for the family. I know I can.
And it's crazy because like literally the elements are all the same.
You know what? I think their snowman, this one, looks better than the Keaton one.
I haven't watched this one. I just did my research.
Oh no, you haven't watched this one.
I have not.
Oh, the bathroom scene. You're gonna shit a goddamn brick when you see the bathroom scene.
Here's the best part. I seen like the trailer card for this. All right, and so this is like mid 2000s. So when I went to go look for the movie, it gave me the Michael Keaton Jack Frost. So I watched it, I'm like, this don't look nothing like the trailer. So, kid you not, from that point, I shied away from it until I actually did the research. Said, no, there's two Jack Frost with the identical storyline, except one's a family comedy and one's a family horror movie.
The death scenes are really good now. I'm not going to talk about them since you haven't watched it, but this movie's just hysterical. Just goddamn hysterical. And like, I'll show you the pictures when we're done here, but no. Their snowman looked better.
Let's round it up, because Justin always touched on it.
They made a sequel.
Yeah, they did.
It's on an island.
Oh, Jesus. And it's only 1 year after. I did the research. I found out the information.
There is a sequel to this.
But I did want to tell you, but I didn't want to tell you off camera because I figured you would get a laugh at the situation I was placed in. My number one, Justin talked about as his number 4, Rush Hour. Literally, I'm going to just wrap it up here. Every point that he talked about, I enjoyed. The comedy. And even, Jackie Chan at that point was an action star. One of the best action stars of our life.
They had some really good suspense when the little girls with like the bomb, and you got the woman having to try to deactivate the bomb on her.
Yeah, the comedy of dealing with laughing at Chris Tucker's character and then being the serious of Jackie Chan's character, and like you said, watching them grow and feeding off of each other, but still keeping their own styles. This always makes me laugh, and I can keep rewatching because of the action and the comedy. So that's my number 1.
That's it.
Until next time.
Well, no, we got to talk about the. God, we're going in the 80s, aren't we?
Yeah, I think the 80s.
Oh, that's gonna suck.
My rules for the 80s comedies are
so many of those movies are actually really terrible with horrible fucking things in them.
But until next time when we do that genre, bye bye.